The city sidewalk burned like a skillet under the August sun. Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand, the same hand that had been counting coins all morning. $37.42. That's what stood between her daughter's medication and another sleepless night listening to Emma's labored breathing. She walked faster, her worn sneakers slapping against the concrete, past the coffee shops she couldn't afford and the boutiques she'd never enter. The pharmacy was 6 blocks away. She had 40 minutes before her shift started at the diner. Everything had to line up perfectly, the way it never actually did when you needed it to. That's when she saw him, an old man, maybe 70, slumped against a brick wall in the shade of an awning. His clothes were stained and threadbare, his face weathered like old leather left too long in the sun. A cardboard sign rested against his knee. "Anything helps. God bless." Sarah's feet slowed without permission from her brain. She'd walked past 100 people like him. Everyone did. You had to, didn't you? You couldn't save the whole world when you were barely saving yourself. But something made her stop. Maybe it was the way his hands trembled. Maybe it was the water bottle next to him, empty and crushed. Maybe it was just that today, with everything pressing down on her, she remembered what it felt like to be invisible. She reached into her purse and pulled out a bottle of water she'd refilled at home that morning. Not the coins. She couldn't spare those. But the water, that she could do. "Here," she said, crouching down so they were eye level. "It's hot today." The man's eyes lifted to hers, and for a moment, something passed between them. Not pity, not charity, just one human seeing another. "Thank you," he said, and his voice cracked like he hadn't used it in hours. "Thank you so much." "Stay cool," Sarah said. She touched his shoulder, just briefly, and then she was gone, hurrying toward the pharmacy, already doing the math in her head about whether she could skip lunch to make up the dollar she'd need if the prescription cost more than she remembered. She didn't know that the man watched her disappear into the crowd. She didn't know that he pulled a phone from beneath his ragged jacket, the screen more expensive than anything she owned. She didn't know that he made a call that would change everything. She just knew that Emma needed her medicine, and nothing else mattered. The prescription cost $38.17. Sarah handed over her crumpled bills and counted out the coins while the pharmacist waited with the kind of patience that's really impatience wearing a mask. She was 75 cents short. I can come back," Sarah started, but the pharmacist was already shaking her head. "It's fine. Don't worry about it." Sarah wanted to cry. Instead, she thanked the woman 3 times and rushed out before the mercy could be taken back. At the diner, she tied her apron and fell into the rhythm of orders and coffee refills and smiles that cost nothing to give. Her feet ached. Her back ached. But Emma would breathe easier tonight, and that was enough. That had to be enough. She didn't think about the old man again until 3 days later. It was Marcus Chun who found her, though she didn't know his name yet. He came into the diner during the lunch rush, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He sat in her section and ordered coffee, black, and when she brought it to him, he looked at her the way people look when they're searching for something specific. "Sarah Mitchell?" he asked. Her stomach dropped. Nobody in a suit like that brought good news. "Yes. My name is Marcus Chin. I represent the Wellington Foundation. Do you have a few minutes?" "I'm working," she said, glancing at her manager, who was already frowning in their direction. "It's important. It's about a position we'd like to offer you." Sarah almost laughed. "I think you have the wrong person. You gave water to a man on 7th Street 3 days ago." The memory surfaced. The old man, the trembling hands. "I don't understand. Could we talk? After your shift?" She agreed because saying no felt impossible, and spent the rest of her shift in a fog of confusion and growing worry. Scams existed. People pretended to offer jobs and then asked for bank account numbers or social security details. She'd heard the stories, but Marcus Chun waited, patient as stone, and when her shift ended, he bought her coffee and told her a story that sounded like something from a movie, not real life. The old man wasn't homeless. His name was Robert Wellington. He was a billionaire, and he'd been sitting on that sidewalk, dressed in rags, for 6 weeks. I don't understand, Sarah said again, because the words weren't making sense strung together like that. Marcus leaned forward. Mr. Wellington has a son, his only child. For years, they've been estranged. The son believes everyone wants something from him, from his father's money. He doesn't trust anyone, won't let anyone in. That's sad, Sarah said carefully, but I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Mr. Wellington has been looking for someone genuine, someone with real kindness. He's been testing people, watching how they treat someone they think has nothing to offer them. Marcus paused. You were the only one who stopped, the only one who saw him as a person. Sarah's coffee had gone cold. He was testing people. He was looking for hope, and he found it in you. Marcus slid a folder across the table. He wants to offer you a job, personal assistant to his son. The salary is $150,000 a year. The number didn't make sense. Sarah had never seen that much money in one place. She made $23,000 at the diner, and that was with overtime she could barely survive. Why? She whispered. Because he believes you might be the person who can help his son remember what kindness looks like, what trust looks like. He's not trying to manipulate his son into a relationship. He's trying to, Marcus searched for words. He's trying to put someone good in his son's path. Sarah thought about Emma, about the medication that cost almost $40 every week, about the shoes her daughter needed, the school supplies, the winter coat she'd already outgrown, about the nights Sarah lay awake running numbers that never added up right. She thought about the old man's trembling hands, the way his eyes had lit up over a bottle of water. She thought about what it meant that he'd been pretending, testing, watching. I need to think about it, she said. Of course. Marcus handed her a business card. Take your time. But Sarah, this is real, and I think you deserve something good. That night, Sarah sat at her kitchen table after Emma was asleep. The business card rested in front of her, next to the stack of bills she couldn't pay, the rent notice that threatened eviction, the letter from the school about unpaid lunch fees. Her mother called, the way she did every Wednesday. You sound tired, baby, her mother said. Sarah told her everything. The man on the sidewalk, the job offer, the money that could change their lives. Her mother was quiet for a long time. Then what does your gut say? That it sounds too good to be true. But Emma needs new shoes. And I'm so tired, Mama. I'm so tired of counting pennies and choosing between medicine and groceries. Then you take the meeting, her mother said firmly. You go see what this is, and if it feels wrong, you walk away. But don't walk away from a chance because you're scared of good things happening to you. Sarah met with Robert Wellington himself 2 days later, not in an office, but in a small park where children played and dogs chased frisbees. He was wearing clean clothes now, but she recognized him immediately. The eyes, the hands that had trembled, holding her water bottle. I'm sorry I deceived you, he said. No preamble, no small talk. Why did you? She didn't mean it to sound accusatory, but it did. He looked at the children playing. My son is 42 years old. When he was 12, his mother and I divorced. I chose my company over my family. I chose deals and acquisitions and board meetings over his basketball games and science fairs and the moments that mattered. His voice went rough. I made billions of dollars and I lost my son. Sarah waited. He thinks everyone wants something. Money, access, status. And he's usually right. For years, I've watched him build walls so high that nobody can reach him. He's brilliant and successful and completely alone. Robert turned to her. I've spent 6 weeks on that sidewalk because I wanted to know if kindness still existed. Real kindness, the kind that costs something. I just gave you water. You saw me. Everyone else looked away. And I had people follow you, Sarah. I know about Emma's medication. I know you were short on money that day. I know you skipped lunch to make up the difference. He paused. You gave me water when it cost you something. That's the kind of person I want around my son. You want me to what? Make him a better person. I want you to be yourself. That's all. Do the job honestly. Be the person you are. Maybe that's enough to remind him that good people exist. Sarah looked at this old man with his billions and his regrets, and she saw something she recognized. The same thing she saw in the mirror when Emma was asleep and the bills were spread across the table. The desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, things could get better. What if I can't help him? She asked quietly. Then at least you'll have a salary that means Emma gets her medicine without you having to skip meals. It was manipulation. She knew that. A billionaire orchestrating people's lives like chess pieces. But it was also a job that would mean Emma could have new shoes and winter coats, and maybe even the dance classes she talked about sometimes, her voice wistful and small. When do I start? Sarah asked. The Wellington Group headquarters looked like something from a magazine spread about wealth Sarah couldn't fathom. Glass and steel and marble, everything gleaming and cold. She wore the best outfit she owned. A dress she'd bought at Goodwill and a cardigan Emma said made her look professional, and felt like an imposter with every step. Marcus met her in the lobby. Ready? No. He smiled. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. They rode the elevator to the 40th floor. Marcus briefed her on the basics. Daniel Wellington ran the investment division. He was brilliant, demanding, and hadn't spoken to his father in 5 years beyond obligatory emails at Christmas. He doesn't know, Sarah said suddenly, about the sidewalk, about his father's plan. No, and he can't know. To him, you're just the new assistant his father hired. Standard business. This feels wrong. I know, Marcus said, and he sounded genuinely sorry. But you're here now, and maybe something good can come from it anyway. Daniel Wellington's office was enormous and impersonal. Awards on the walls, a view that stretched across the entire city, and behind a desk that looked like it cost more than Sarah's car. A man who barely looked up when she entered. You're the new assistant, he said. Not a question. Yes. Sarah Mitchell. Fine. Coffee is black, no sugar. Meetings are sacred. Don't interrupt unless the building is on fire. I don't make small talk. We clear? Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. It's Daniel or Mr. Wellington. He finally looked at her, and his eyes were cold. Assessing. My father hired you? Yes. Of course he did. Something bitter crossed his face. Let me guess. You have a compelling backstory. Single mother? Medical bills? The kind of story that pulls at heartstrings. Sarah's jaw tightened. I have a daughter, and I work hard. That's all you need to know. For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Fair enough. Get me the Bronson file. Third cabinet, left side. She got the file. She made the coffee. She scheduled the meetings and answered the phones and did everything the job required. Daniel barely acknowledged her existence, which somehow felt worse than hostility. But she watched him, the way he worked 16-hour days, the way he ate lunch at his desk alone, the way he sometimes stared out the window like he was looking for something he'd lost and couldn't remember. 3 weeks in, she brought him coffee and found him on a phone call, his voice sharp and cold. I don't care about their personal circumstances. The contract says 60 days. If they can't deliver, we find someone who can. He hung up and saw her expression. Problem. No, sir, Daniel, but you have an opinion. She shouldn't say it. She was barely holding on to this job, this lifeline that meant Emma's life got easier. But the words came anyway. They're people, not just contract numbers. People who signed agreements they're not honoring. Maybe they have reasons. Everyone has reasons. That doesn't change business reality. Sarah set the coffee down. Must be lonely thinking like that. She walked out before he could respond, her heart hammering, certain she'd just ended everything. But the next day, when she came in, there was a note on her desk in Daniel's handwriting. Look into the Bronsons' situation. See if there are extenuating circumstances worth considering. It was small, but it was something. The days became weeks. Sarah learned the rhythm of the office, the expectations, the unspoken rules. She learned that Daniel worked because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling, and feeling was something he'd trained himself not to do. She learned he donated to charities anonymously, that he paid his employees above market rates, that he'd once stopped a meeting to take call from an intern's mother and helped arrange her medical care. He wasn't cruel. He was careful, so careful that nothing could hurt him. One Friday, Daniel asked her to stay late. They were preparing for a major presentation, and the work stretched past midnight. Around 11, Sarah's phone rang. Emma. Mom? I don't feel good. Sarah's heart seized. What's wrong, baby? My chest feels tight, like before. Where's Grandma? She fell asleep. Mom, I'm scared. Sarah looked at the spreadsheets covering Daniel's desk, the presentation that needed to be perfect. Then she looked at her phone, at her daughter, who couldn't breathe right. I have to go, she said, already grabbing her purse. Daniel looked up. We're not finished. My daughter is sick. I'm sorry. I have to go. She expected anger, dismissal. Instead, he stood. I'll drive you. What? You're shaking. You shouldn't drive. He was already putting on his jacket. Come on.
They made it to Sarah's apartment in 15 minutes that felt like hours. Daniel waited in the car while she ran inside, finding Emma struggling for breath, her inhaler not quite enough. Sarah made the calculation she'd made 100 times. Emergency room or wait it out. And this time, with a billionaire in her driveway and guilt thick in her throat, she called an ambulance. Daniel came with them. He sat in the waiting room while doctors examined Emma, while Sarah filled out paperwork with shaking hands, while nurses hooked her daughter up to nebulizers and oxygen monitors. She'll be fine, a doctor finally said. But she needs better medication. The one she's on isn't sufficient. How much? Sarah asked, though she knew she couldn't afford it regardless. The doctor named a figure that made Sarah's vision blur. She was still sitting there, staring at nothing, when Daniel appeared beside her. It's handled, he said. What? The medication. The hospital bill. It's handled. No. Sarah stood up. No, I can't. You can't. It's already done. Daniel, I'm not a charity case. I know. He looked uncomfortable, like kindness was a language he'd forgotten how to speak. You've worked late every night this week. You've reorganized my entire filing system. You've made my life easier. Consider it a bonus. Bonuses don't cover $1,000 medications. Mine do. They stared at each other in the fluorescent hospital light, and something shifted. Some wall, carefully maintained, developed a crack. Why? Sarah whispered. Because. Daniel stopped. Started again. Because you stayed late even though you were worried. Because you put the work first until you couldn't anymore. Because that's what good people do. They try. Even when it costs them. Your father put me here, Sarah said. The truth spilled out before she could stop it. He didn't tell you, but he hired me specifically. Because I gave him water when he was pretending to be homeless. He wanted someone kind around you. This whole thing was orchestrated. She watched Daniel's face close off, watched the wall rebuild itself brick by brick. I see. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I needed the job so badly, and I thought maybe it didn't matter why I was here if I did the work right. But that was wrong. I'm sorry. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then, how's Emma? She's better. They said she's stable. Good. He stood. Take the weekend. Be with your daughter. We'll talk Monday. He left, and Sarah was sure she'd just lost everything. But Monday came, and Daniel was in his office, looking like he hadn't slept. Sarah stood in the doorway, resignation letter in her hand. I wrote this, she said, holding it up. If you want me to go, I understand. Do you? Daniel asked. Understand? I lied by omission. You have every right to fire me. My father spent 6 weeks on a sidewalk looking for good people. That's... He laughed, sharp and bitter. That's exactly the kind of thing he'd do. Manipulative and well-meaning in equal measure. I'm sorry. You gave him water. When you didn't have money to spare. Why? Sarah thought about it. Because he looked thirsty. 'Cause nobody should be invisible like that. 'Cause because when I was at my lowest, someone helped me once. A stranger in a grocery store paid for my food when my card declined. I never forgot that feeling. Like maybe the world wasn't entirely cruel. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. You know what the worst part is? The work. His ridiculous plan. You do make me think differently. About people. About. He stopped. Don't resign. Please. Are you sure? No. But I'd like to try. If you'll stay. Sarah stayed. The months that followed weren't easy. Daniel didn't magically become warm and open. But he started asking questions. About Sarah's life. About Emma. About the things that mattered beyond spreadsheets and profit margins. He met Emma once, when Sarah had no choice but to bring her to the office. Her daughter, shy and curious, asked him why he worked so much. Because work is safe, Daniel said, surprising them both with his honesty. People are complicated. My mom works a lot too, Emma said. But she says she does it for me. So I can have things. What do you do it for? Daniel had no answer. But that night he called Sarah into his office. I talked to my father today. First real conversation in 5 years. What did you say? That I was angry. That I still am. But that maybe I understand why he did what he did. Looking for good people. Trying to fix things. And he cried. I've never heard my father cry before. Sarah waited. He asked if we could have dinner. Just the two of us. Daniel looked vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I said yes. Months turned into a year. The job became real, not just a billionaire scheme. Sarah became indispensable, not because she was kind but because she was good at what she did. Daniel gave her a raise, then another. Emma got into a better school. They moved to an apartment with heat that worked and windows that closed properly. But more than that, Daniel changed. He started leaving the office at reasonable hours. He donated publicly, not just anonymously. He smiled sometimes, real smiles that reached his eyes. And when Robert Wellington was diagnosed with cancer, it was Daniel who sat by his bedside every day. It was Daniel who held his hand when the end came. It was Daniel who gave a eulogy about second chances and the strangers who help us find our way back to ourselves. At the funeral, Daniel found Sarah standing apart from the crowd. He left you something, Daniel said. In his will. He didn't need to do that. He wanted to. A trust fund for Emma's education. And a letter. Daniel handed her an envelope. Sarah opened it with shaking hands. Dear Sarah, you gave me water when I had nothing to offer you in return. You showed me that kindness still exists in this world, genuine and uncalculated. But more than that, you gave me back my son. You reminded him how to trust, how to hope, how to be human again. Thank you for seeing an old man on a sidewalk. Thank you for stopping when everyone else walked by. Thank you for being exactly who you are. With gratitude, Robert Wellington. Sarah folded the letter carefully, tears running down her face. He was right, you know, Daniel said quietly. You did change everything. Not because of some plan or scheme. 'Cause you're you. Because when it
I
mattered,
just gave him water.
you chose kindness
No,
over convenience.
You saw him. That's different. That's everything. They stood together in the autumn afternoon, among the flowers and mourners, and Sarah thought about the path that led here. The struggling mother counting coins. The old man on the sidewalk. The bottle of water that cost almost nothing and changed everything. Emma ran up, taking Sarah's hand. Can we go home, Mom? Soon, baby. Daniel crouched down to Emma's level. Your mom is one of the best people I know. I hope you know that. I do, Emma said seriously. She tells me all the time that being kind is more important than being rich. She's right, Daniel said, looking at Sarah. Though sometimes, if you're lucky, kindness makes you rich in the ways that actually matter. Sarah thought about water on a burning sidewalk, about seeing people when the world says to look away, about the courage it takes to be gentle in a harsh world, to give when you have little, to hope when everything says not to. She thought about Robert Wellington's elaborate test, his desperate search for proof that goodness existed, and she thought about how simple the answer had been all along. Not grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices, just one person seeing another, just water freely given, just kindness, small and persistent and real. The sun broke through the clouds, warming her face, and Sarah squeezed Emma's hand. Sometimes the smallest acts echo the longest. Sometimes a stranger becomes family. Sometimes the cost of doing good is so much less than the cost of looking away. And sometimes, in a city that never slows down, on a sidewalk burning under the August sun, one bottle of water is enough to change the world.